Welcome back, everyone. We are here. This is it. This is the wrap-up episode of Lent Madness of Saint Central. We are wrapping things up today. We are done. There is no more to go. The door is closed. The bags are packed. It's time to leave. But we've got some information for you before we get that far. This is Evangelist here from HPJL TV News. And with me, as usual, is our Saints and Sports Editor, Corey Enthean. Corey, it's great to have you here. What a journey this has been.
Evan, it feels like we just started, and here we are. Final 2-3 matchups. We're wrapping it up. But before we give out the holy hardware, we got to recap some.
We got to get some. Absolutely, we've had some highlights, some important pieces of story that still need to be shared. Yep. So before we get to that very thing, before we get to that hardware, as Corey was just saying, we got to find out what happened in that Faithful Four. We were almost done. The last time we met, we were almost done. There were just 3 votes to go. We'd gotten ourselves down to the Faithful Four. We had Joanna, the myrrh bearer, or Joanna, the head barrier, as we determined that she might be. We had MDP, the potential MVP, who was battling it out against Joanna. And then we also had Jonathan Daniels and Chief Seattle, a couple North American Saints that are looking to see what they can do. So, with that in mind, let's get right into that Faithful Four. Let's get right into those last 2 battles before we finally see, as we've made this journey, we finally get to see who makes it to that Golden Halo round. So, let's start off with Joanna and MDP. What can you share?
Joanna's, we often don't think we know much about Jesus' female followers, but that isn't always the case. For some of them, like Joanna, we know as much, if not more, about them as we do some of the 12, like Simon the Zealot. I mean, who knows a lot about Simon the Zealot, right?
He was zealous about stuff.
Right, but that's about it.
That's right.
After a healing encounter with Jesus, Joanna left behind her privilege to follow this teacher and healer from town to town, using her privilege to support his ministry to the outcast and the oppressed.
Always good to have someone on the inside.
Always good.
Always good.
Myrrh bearer, head barrier. But let's not forget, according to the Gospel of Luke, she was also a good news bringer. One of the first to take the good news of the resurrection out into the world to those disciples who fled Jesus before the crucifixion. Joanna continues to show us today just how important the voices and ministry of women like her were at the time of Jesus and can still be in the church.
Amazing to hear that voice being picked up yet again, year after year. I love the fact that the story always goes back to the first people that shared with the world that Jesus was risen are the women. I love that. And I love that Joanna was one of those that were gathered in that place. All right, so Joanna against your favorite, I think, MDP. What can you tell me about your MVP?
He was my favorite from the get-go. Martin de Porres knew the world was a hard place, and his joy came in service to everyone he met, and especially those at the Dominican convent of the Rosary. It was in his care of the people who came to the convent that he felt closest to God. To those who were sick, he would heal. Those who were lonely, he would comfort. Those who were forsaken, he would understand. Those who were confused and drawn to material things, he would teach. Those who were abandoned, he would offer shelter. Martin de Porres was a man of the people and for the people, not for his own well-being, but to serve God.
Certainly one of those guys that truly understood the things that you do to the least of these, my sisters and brothers, you do it for me. Indeed. He got it. He understood that gospel message.
Indeed.
All right. Anything else to share on MDP
That's
before we move? All right. So here it is. This is the first of our Faithful Four battles. This is going to determine who's making it to that final Golden Halo round. How did this one roll out?
MDP will not be the MVP of this tournament. Joanna took this battle 58% of the vote.
All right, so Joanna is heading on to the final round. Did you get that? Heading on. Heading on. Nice, eh?
Don't bury the lead.
Very nice. Excellent. Well done. All right, so that is our first round of those Faithful Four. That means we've still got 2 more. We've got that North American saintly battle. We got Jonathan Daniels and Chief Seattle. How did that one roll out? What can you share with us about Jonathan?
Jonathan Daniels, when he went to Selma, Alabama, he grasped the difficult and necessity of what was happening when he went there. In his writing, no one was defined by race or defined by their hate. And he doesn't seem to have subscribed to the myth of a colorblind society that makes so many people want to brush all this under the rug in favor of general niceness. Jonathan understood as Christians we have to thread a difficult needle, both refusing to compromise on the dignity of every human being and refusing to write off people who are mired in bigotry. He knew we have to somehow, some way bring them and everyone along to the kingdom because the kingdom was Jonathan's goal. Jonathan Daniels was a mighty witness. He lived and died by the baptismal covenant and laid down his life for his friends.
Fantastic. All right, so he really understood that idea of, sometimes I've heard people say that, Jesus calls us to love everyone. It doesn't mean you're always going to like everyone necessarily, but you still have to love everyone. And Jonathan Daniels showed that. If you can be loving towards those people, that bigotry side, if you can still show love even though you're trying to make a change, Jonathan's given us a good example of how that works. Excellent.
Preach, Evan.
Absolutely. All right, so Chief Seattle, what do we got?
Chief Sealth was probably one of the hardest to understand saints in this tournament, kind of like Bach.
Yeah.
He was forced to agree to a treaty that would not be honored. His people were exiled from a land they long inhabited. His famous speech offers a brief theological reflection that should give us pause. He said, "The white man's God cannot love our people or he would protect them. They seem to be orphans who can look nowhere for help. If we have a common heavenly Father, he must be partial.
Wow.
Sealth is a challenging saint to reckon with because of this. His words and witness force us to confront our own apathy and grapple with the messy, intertwined histories of colonialism and Christianity. He boldly spoke truth to power and advocated for those who are being crushed and oppressed. Sounds like Jesus, doesn't it?
A little bit like Jesus, no kidding. And to hear that voice that was spoken at that time in history, that voice sadly is still having to be voiced. That it's still having to be heard. It's still having to be declared. At least there is that witness of one who went first to be able to give an example to those who are trying to make a change.
Indeed.
So thanks be for Chief Seattle and for the ministry that he did in that as well. As difficult as you say, as it was to try to figure out how that saintly life fits together.
That's right.
But certainly good to see what he had. All right, so here it is, folks. This is the last battle of the Faithful Four. This is it before we get to that Golden Halo round. Jonathan Daniels and Chief Seattle. Corey?
I really thought Chief Seattle had a good chance of going all the way to the Golden Halo match, but Jonathan Daniels took him down. 59.8% of the vote went his way. Chief Seattle goes home. But I think a lot more people are more familiar with his story and what his idea of theology can carry us forward into the future.
Absolutely. So as we make our way then into that Golden Halo round, that means it's the Battle of the Jays. Right? We've got Joanna the Myrrh-Bearer, Jonathan Daniels, Jay against Jay, and this has got to be a good battle. I mean, you've got two solid, but very, very distant time-wise. Chronologically, is almost as far apart as we can get.
Just about as far apart as we can get. Thousands of years almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's recap how they got here.
Excellent idea. All right.
Joanna the Myrrh-Bearer in the first round defeated Monica. She took 81% of the vote there. In the Saintly 16, she took 65% of the vote. Again, Augustine of Hippo.
Yeah, right.
In the Elite 8, Blandina squared off against her and took 78% of the vote against Blandina. And as we just heard, she took down Martin de Porres, the MVP for some of us in the Faithful Four.
You know what? My dad always gave me a good piece of advice. He said, if your team gets kicked out of the playoffs, you always vote for the team that beat them, because then you can always claim that maybe you were second best.
Yeah, right.
And in this case, I know that people that I'm connected with, fairly deeply connected with, I know we're really pushing for St. Augustine of Hippo. So the fact that Joanna is the one who pushed him out of the way, that's a good sign for Joanna. Indeed. All right, so that was Joanna, those battles that she took out on her journey towards this Golden Halo. How about Jonathan? What did he do?
Jonathan Daniels in the round of 32 took on Rutilio Grande and took 79% of that vote.
Our wrestler.
That's right.
Rutilio Grande. All right.
In the Saintly 16 against Josephine Bakita, Jonathan Daniels took 72% of that vote. In the Elite 8, Florence Lee Timoy challenged him, but came up short, 68% of the vote to Jonathan Daniels. And as we just heard, he took down Chief Seattle with 60% of the vote in the Faithful Four.
All right, so it comes down to this, folks. I know that our leaderboard has been on pins and needles. We were so close it could go any way, any direction. It was just a little bit of balance this way or a little bit of balance that way could change the tip of the scales. How did those scales tip in this Golden Halo round?
Before I reveal that, I'll let you know, as I was monitoring the vote yesterday, there came a time last night when there was an increase and spike in votes for Joanna, and because she had been trailing all day.
All right.
And 1,000 votes suddenly came in. The folks behind the madness at Lent Madness determined that there was an illegal voting that happened, and they had to take 1,050 votes away from Joanna because somebody was trying to cheat. I don't know.
A little tampering in the background. All right. Jonathan Daniels supporters not necessarily playing fair here. All right.
Joanna supporters.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
Thank you.
That's right.
All right, so
by that difference in votes at 1,050, Jonathan Daniels takes the Golden Halo with 55% of the final vote.
Holy cow.
And he is the Golden Halo winner for
Jonathan
2023.
Daniels, way to go. Nicely done. All right, so amazing to see a local, I'm going to call him local just because, it's North American. We're going to call him a local boy taking out that ancient saint in Joanna. Not that I'm calling Joanna old. That would be rude. That would be very rude, and particularly knowing that she knows how to bury heads. So we'll keep Joanna happy on that side. But Jonathan Daniels, congratulations. That's a fantastic round of 64 down to this one final Golden Halo. All right. Everybody wants to know the real truth. Now that we know who has won the Golden Halo, who won on our local leaderboard? What can you share with us about that?
For the second year in a row since we've been doing this, Evan, not a single person in our group selected the correct Golden Halo winner. Not a single one. However, 2 folks in our group had Joanna going out, hopefully winning the Golden Halo, but she came out just short.
Yeah, that was pretty close. Yeah.
With 2 total points that surpassed any of last year's, the winning points total this year was 46 out of a possible 80 points.
That's all right. Good. That is all right.
Don Marcotte was hanging on to the lead throughout most of this.
I remember that.
And because Marion Oakley had Jonathan Daniels versus Joanna the Myrbearer in the final, she correctly predicted the final from the outset.
Wow.
Just didn't predict the winner correctly. However, she still takes home our local leader champion.
Wow, all right.
She will be the one who is honored with passing on the $120 we collected to a local charity of her choosing.
That is amazing. So, Marion, you got to get your ideas in your brain. Start thinking about where you want those dollars and cents to go. What a privilege to be able to take your favorite charity and offer that $120 to wherever that may be. So, what a round. What a round this has been. This has been a fantastic journey. It has been a great year to be able to share in Lent Madness, our second season here with Saint Central. It's certainly been great to be here with you, Corey. Any wrap-up thoughts on this year's tournament?
I learned a lot this year, Evan. A lot about people I didn't know much about, especially Jonathan Daniels. And I think we're all going to go home from this year's tournament a little wiser, a little more ready to live into our calling, to follow in Jesus' footsteps, like Jonathan Daniels so did in his short life.
Fantastic, excellent. Thank you for that. I would have to echo that. The learning has been fantastic, and the learning doesn't have to stop. You can always go back and learn more about those saints. The leaderboard will be printed on the same email that you get the this episode of Saint Central on, so you can always go back and see, what was that saint about? What was a little bit more information about this saint? Never an opportunity that can be missed to go and learn a little bit more.
And the madness doesn't end just because our Golden Halo has been crowned for this year. Nomination tide will be upon us in no time. And if you follow the folks at lentmadness.org, you can submit the saint that you believe should participate in Lent Madness 2024.
All right, we know it's just around the corner. If Saint Central and Lent Madness seem like it just started yesterday, you know that it's going to feel like just tomorrow when we're back here again for Saint Central and Lent Madness one more season as we look towards 2024. As we wrap things up here today, Corey, it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you for being here with me at the HPJL TV News Desk. For Saint Central, I'm Evangelist
Corey Entian.
Be saintly, everyone.